Some women don't chase, and yet, they are never forgotten. There is something unsettling about a woman who can walk away without noise. No dramatic exit, no desperate explanations, no final plea to be understood. Just silence, and distance. To the outside world, it looks simple. But inside the man she leaves behind, something far more complex begins to unfold, something he will never fully admit, not even to himself. He was never just seeing her. He was seeing what she awakened inside him. In the language of Jungian psychology, she was not merely a woman, she was his anima, the unconscious feminine image living within him. And when she arrived, she didn't just bring attraction. She brought reflection. She mirrored his hidden desires, his emotional hunger, his need for connection that his ego had long suppressed. At first, he felt powerful. In control. Detached. His ego whispered that he was the one choosing, the one deciding, the one holding the emotional distance. But slowly, without realizing it, he began to lean into her presence. Not outwardly, but inwardly. She became a quiet dependency. A source of validation he didn't know he needed. And then, she walked away. The first truth he feels is confusion, not loud, not obvious, but deeply disorienting. His mind searches for logic, for a clear reason, something he can label and dismiss. But there is none. Because her departure wasn't chaos, it was clarity. And clarity is something the ego resists. His thoughts begin to loop, not because he misses her presence alone, but because he cannot control the narrative anymore. What unsettles him most is not her absence, but her silence. Silence forces confrontation. And suddenly, the projections he placed onto her begin to collapse. He can no longer blame her reactions, her emotions, her expectations. What remains is the uncomfortable truth of his own behavior, his inconsistency, his emotional avoidance, the ways he withheld without understanding why. The second truth begins to rise quietly beneath the surface: regret. Not the kind he would confess, but the kind that lingers in late hours, in empty moments, in the subtle awareness that something real slipped through his hands. He may not call it love. His ego won't allow that. But he will feel the absence of something rare, something that challenged him to grow. Because she did something dangerous. She didn't chase his approval. She didn't bend herself into comfort. She didn't stay where she wasn't fully seen. And that disrupts him. In attachment psychology, a man who leans avoidant often distances himself when intimacy deepens. He pulls back, not because he doesn't feel, but because he feels too much without the tools to process it. Her presence activated something within him, but her absence forces him to face it alone. This is where the third truth emerges: emotional exposure. Without her, there is no distraction. No soft presence to absorb his inconsistencies. No feminine energy to balance his internal chaos. What remains is the raw landscape of his inner world: unprocessed emotions, unresolved fears, fragments of vulnerability he once ignored. And here is where his shadow begins to stir. Jung described the shadow as everything we reject about ourselves, the traits we hide, suppress, or deny. While she was there, he could project his shadow onto her. Her sensitivity became too much. Her depth became complicated. Her needs became pressure. But now, there is no one left to carry that projection. And so the fourth truth reveals itself: he begins to see himself, not all at once. Not clearly. But in fragments. Moments where her words echo back. Moments where her absence feels heavier than expected. Moments where he realizes, she wasn't asking for too much. She was asking for truth. This realization doesn't come with peace. It comes with discomfort. Because to acknowledge her value is to confront his inability to meet it. And the ego resists that kind of accountability. So outwardly, he may remain unchanged. Silent. Distant. Unbothered. But internally, something has shifted. The fifth truth is quiet admiration. Not the kind he expresses, but the kind he feels. Because deep down, he recognizes strength when he sees it. And walking away without drama, without begging, without collapsing into need, that requires a level of self-respect that unsettles him. It challenges the dynamic he was comfortable in. You must understand this. When you walk away in silence, you remove yourself from the role he unconsciously assigned to you. You are no longer the one waiting, the one hoping, the one adjusting. You become something else entirely. You become the woman he cannot predict. And unpredictability is power. But this is where the deeper transformation begins, not in him, but in you. Because the moment you choose distance over desperation, something within you begins to reorganize. The emotional energy that was once directed toward him, returns to you. Your awareness sharpens. Your self-worth stabilizes. Your need for external validation dissolves. This is individuation. The process Jung described where a person becomes whole, not by seeking completion in another, but by integrating all parts of themselves. Light and shadow. Strength and vulnerability. Desire and discipline. And in that process, you stop chasing, not as a strategy, but as a natural consequence of self-awareness. The sixth truth he feels is loss of access. Not just to you, but to the version of himself that existed with you. Because you didn't just offer presence. You offered emotional depth, reflection, and a kind of connection that is rare in a world built on superficial interactions, and once that is gone, it cannot be easily replaced. He may try. Distractions. New conversations. Temporary connections. But none of them carry the same weight. Because they don't see him the way you did. And that absence becomes a quiet echo he cannot silence. Finally, the seventh truth. He feels the shift in power. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But unmistakably. Because the moment you stopped chasing, he started noticing. The moment you detached, he felt the distance. The moment you chose yourself, he lost control of the dynamic. And this is the paradox. He may never reach out. He may never admit what he feels. He may never fully understand the depth of what changed within him. But something did change. Because you walked away. Not in anger. Not in defeat. But in awareness. And that kind of departure doesn't create noise, it creates impact. So if there is a part of you that wonders whether he feels anything at all, understand this. He feels more than he can explain. More than his ego can process. More than he will ever admit. But your journey was never meant to be about his realization. It was meant to be about yours. Because the woman who finally sees her own worth, no longer waits to be chosen. She becomes the one who chooses. And the moment she does, everything changes. The woman who walks away in silence isn't weak, she simply sees more.